Shabbat Shalom, my good beloved friends, my beautiful friends from all over the world. Thank you for tuning in and letting me spend a few more time with you at the Rabbi's Son's Shabbat table. Welcome to a few quality moments around the Shabbat table with the Rabbi's Son. This is the week of Parsha Bhar, the 32nd of the Parshas of Torah. Your address in your scriptures is Leviticus chapter 25. Verse 1 through chapter 26, verse 2. Only a little bit more than a single chapter. It's usually combined with Parsha Bechukotai, which is the final section of the book of Leviticus. And this year we get to split that up into two sections. So today we talk about Bhar. We're going to talk about this great stage that is going to unfold for us, the platform upon which the Creator of the universe is going to place us, the people of Israel, the Bnei Israel, the witness throng of Israel will be placed to live, to dwell, and to project and testify of the greatness and the goodness of God to all the nations. We will be given this strategic beachhead, or the strategic stage, or the strategic platform from which the grand story of redemption and restoration will play its way out and will be told over and over and over again. Again, welcome to you, and thank you for joining me. Let me know where you are and what's been going on. But this is the penultimate, the next to last Sabbath of our journey through Sefer Vayikra, the book known in the Western world as Leviticus. We're almost through this grand book. It's been an adventure. I hope you've joined me all the way through for each one of these little sessions around the Shabbat table with the Rabbi's Son. And if you haven't, I hope you'll go back and listen, because they're all there on YouTube or on Facebook. YouTube under Bill Bullock, Facebook under Bill Bullock as well. So either way, you can find them. They're still there. We'll leave them up for you so you can make sure before we leave Sefer Vayikra, our studies of it, you have caught the vision, and you've caught the energy, and you've caught the kedusha of this book. Before we move on to the next one, there will be some topics on our table for discussion this week. Our Shabbat table will have some topics we haven't discussed before. We've left the kedusha discourse. That's taken up many, many weeks of our studies. Last week we concluded that session and we moved on. We had a bookend session discussing a gentleman, I use that term loosely, a son of a Mitzrim and the son of a Hebrew woman named Shalomit, who came out of Egypt with us. And we see how he didn't catch the kedusha, and instead, despite being affiliated with us and associated with the grand works of the Holy One of redemption and restoration in the lives of so many people, he only saw what he wanted to see, and he blasphemed. He spoke curses concerning the name and the persona, the personality of the Holy One, and about his plan. So we saw that be the bookend. It's not just about being in the vicinity and studying these things that makes us worthy vessels to be put on this platform in this stage of grand redemption storytelling. What makes it is our absorbing that kedusha and being changed internally and externally by it. So the topics that we'll study this week, I call this new section we're talking about the Kingdom Beachhead discourse. This is, the Holy One is still speaking. It's not Moshe's words. It's not the laws of Moshe. The Holy One, our God, the Creator of the universe, is actually speaking throughout this parsha as well. And the next, Bechukotai. And so we're still in the Creator's speak season, when the earth is receiving this grand infusion of Creator speak. But the topics are a little bit different this week. We go to the Kingdom Beachhead discourse, and he's going to be talking about the place where he's going to take us to set us up in front of the view of all the world and bring the nations to us, and then we'll have the responsibility of adequately, accurately, and passionately, and yet responsively telling the story of redemption and restoration that he's been infusing into us. So the first thing we're going to talk about, the first subject on our plate today, will be bringing Kedusha, bringing the energy of heaven that fuels the four living creatures and the 24 elders and the angels and the cherubim and the seraphim and all the worship that goes around the throne, bringing that energy of the Holy One that emanates from his very being and draws people into it, bringing that energy into the physical earth in a particular part of the world, the land of Israel, the land between the great river of the Euphrates and the Nile, between the sea, Mediterranean Sea, the Great Sea, and the Jordan Rift Valley. This area, this square area, at the conjunction points of the three most populated continents, Asia, Europe, and Africa. This place of the cradle of humanity, we're going to be placed right in the center of it. It will be our glass house, and the people will be watching what we do there. So learning to bring Kedusha into physical geographic space, into this stage that we were given. The Holy One has told us in Genesis 1 or Genesis 3, when man was sent out of the garden, he was not sent out just blindly to wander. He was sent out to tend, to abad, to serve the Eretz, the land from which he was taken. And so we have this idea of our responsibility to the land, particularly starting with the land of Israel, the land between the rivers and the seas and the river Jordan Rift Valley. The second subject matter, after bringing Kedusha into land, is the idea of parnassah in Hebrew. It's a phrase that refers to making a living or earning a livelihood. The idea is we have a job to do. We're not just taken there and we're supposed to be fed raisin cakes all of our days, and we're supposed to sort of expect the world to take care of us. We are not there to be served by the land. We are there to serve the land and the people and the plan. We are servants at heart. We are not those who take. We're givers, not takers. So this idea of parnassah, we'll bring that to the table to discuss. Making a living, being responsible, taking our part. The Holy One is the ultimate provider. The Holy One is the one who decides who gets what, but we co-labor with him by our parnassah, our vocation, our job, our staying busy and doing things, particularly, and we'll talk about the 6-day plan versus the 7th-day plan, and the 6-year plan versus the 7th-year plan, and the 49 years plan and versus the 50th year plan. We're talking about the fact that in all these seasons, we have the responsibility to co-labor with the creator of the universe. As he gives us a stage, he wants us to tell the story, and he wants us to participate in it by parnassah, as well as many other things. So parnassah, the idea of making a living, of being responsible to do our part, to see that there's food on the table for our families, that we don't become impoverished and reliant upon either the governments of the world or the elites of the world, or even the elites or the wealthy of our own people. We're not dependent. We're not a drag on society. We're actually a productive part of society. We are to sow. We are to till the ground. We are to harvest. We are to gather. This is physical labor, and we need to have some level at which we're all participating in this grand plan, parnassah, making a living. This is the stuff of the Shesh Yamin and the Shesh Shanim, the 6 days and the 6 years. There's exceptions to it, but this is the main thing we're talking about. The opposite of that, the opposite of parnassah, if we're not going to engage in parnassah, then we will engage in pettiness and envy and competition and greed and closed-handedness, and we will not become the people of Kedusha, the people of openness, the people of giving that we're supposed to be. So first subject is bringing Kedusha into actual physical land and making it a place where it can be seen by the world. And then parnassah, of our playing our role, our part in the 6 days and the 6 years. The third subject we'll bring to the table today, and I hope you're listening now because this is important. This is the idea of becoming a brother's keeper. We're keepers of the land. We're servants of the land. We talked about that before. We're also our brother's keeper. We are responsible. If our brother fails in his parnassah, If he fails or is prevented in his parnasah in some regard, our brother, the widow, the foreigner, the fatherless, the poor, the ones who are in need of assistance, we are to have done so much of our parnasah and walked so much in the blessings of Kedusha, that we should be able to and should be willing to and desirous to and anxious to jump into brother keeping. Of course, Cain famously asked after killing his brother Hevel, "Am I my brother's keeper?" The answer was never given in the Torah, specifically by the Holy One, but the rest of Torah bears it out. The answer is yes, you are. You're supposed to be. That's what you're here for. So brother keeping is on the table. How do we brother keep? How do we responsibly brother keep when we might rather just let him suffer the consequences of his own mistakes, or the consequences of fate, as we may think of it, or of sowing and reaping, as we may think of it? How do we measure all these things and responsibly brother keep, as well as kadosh, the Kedusha land, and do our parnasah? When we're busy doing our parnasah, our brother may need keeping, nurturing, mentoring, inspiring, equipping, instead of the opposite of that, which is judging, condemning, controlling, manipulating, abusing. Okay, so we've got another subject matter, and there's one more, and that will be stewarding the Kedusha we have. What we have been given, we are to take very careful care of. Essential do's and don'ts. This is the last verse or two of the parsha. He's going to give us some essential don'ts. This is absolutely kryptonite for Kedusha, kryptonite for your plan of engagement in this grand redemption and restoration protocol. Absolute kryptonite. There'll be certain things, as you'll see what those are. And then there are absolute things you just simply must do to maintain. These are critical maintenance programs for Kedusha. You'll see both in the last couple verses of our parsha. Okay, there's your summary. So we're basically going to get to the issue of how is this great book of Leviticus, the Sefer Vayikra, the book of the calling of the Creator of the universe. Vayikra means and he called, and this whole book is about the substance of the calling upon our lives. How will this book, how will this calling mandate conclude? Well, it began with us just having been gloriously redeemed from bondage. It began with us being given and having lived out the story of all stories of redemption and restoration to tell, a song of the sea to sing. We have been given restoration and redemption protocols. That's how the book began. But we had no stage or platform other than Mount Sinai upon which we could, and no one was watching. But that's all going to change one day. And the Holy One's preparing us for the fact that we're about to be center stage. And how will we tell this greatest of all stories, sing this greatest of all songs? What will be our stage and our platform, and how are we to maintain and care for it and bring out the best in it? Well, the book of Leviticus then will end with us being trained as masters of the realms. Once we get our platform, once we get our stage, once we are securely placed into the land, once that takes place, we are to become ambassadors of the heavenly King and his courts. We're to traffic in the kingdom of heaven and its beauty realm, and the place where the angels and the cherubim and the seraphim sing and worship is had, and the elders cast their crowns down. We are to be at home there, but we're also to be able to bring that holiness, that Kedusha, into the physical, natural world of the nations. We're to do that on a stage, on a platform. Eretz Israel, the land of Israel. We are to be responsible then to steward and to keep a flow of the Kedusha energy of heaven and the King's beauty realm going on earth. And it's supposed to bring it everywhere the soles of our feet shall tread, and just basically explode into full meanings and full purpose when we get to the land of Israel. As you know, the theme of this entire book, as we get ready to conclude, has been the same. It never changed. The calling of the bridegroom king to his bride people is: be kedoshim, be holy ones. Be those who flow in and receive and carry and emit kedusha energy. even as I am the source of Kedusha. Well, this week's sub-theme is Kitavo el haaretz, when you come into the land. Set your eyes on the land of Israel. Lift up your heads and behold the place, Hamakom in Hebrew, this beautiful place where it is the most fruitful land on earth whenever the Holy One puts us in it. It will not respond to other nations. It will not respond to the Arab. It will not respond to the Greek. It will not respond to the Roman. It will not respond to the ugly American, if you want to bring that. It won't respond to the African. It only responds to the Hebrew, because this is the way it's supposed to tell the grand redemptive story. Well, we have come into the presence of the Creator of the universe in our studies. We have been reading his beautiful words, Creator speak, flowing directly from his heart and his throne. We have come into experience of his grand plan of redemption for mankind as a species, bloodline by bloodline, household by household, individual by individual, as many as will heed the call and come. And in addition to that redemption, also his grand plan for restoration of creation, hillside by hillside, valley by valley, plain by plain, continent by continent, to its original intended Edenic state of beauty, fruitfulness, shalom, and harmonious interaction. Yes, messianic kingdom style earth. That's what we're going to see, and that's what we're called into. We've come into the experience of the first fruits of that plan, and we've come into our part now. We've been taught our part of Kedusha carrying and sanctifying and glorifying his name, bringing glory to his name, sanctifying his name throughout the world. We've come into understanding of our script, the things we are to speak and say, how we're to focus our approaches and our attention and our energies in the world. And now soon we will find our way. We will be led to the beachhead, the stage, the platform. This is then, this Parsha this Parsha Bhar is the Parsha of radical ecosystem management protocol for the land of Israel. You try to apply this outside the land between this great river Euphrates and the river Nile, and between this outside the boundary of the Jordan Rift Valley and the Mediterranean Sea, outside that parcel of land, outside that great trifecta of the continents where they come together. You try this anywhere else, it doesn't have the same effect. This is supposed to be a stage. That's the world stage. And so the things that we're going to talk about, the Shemitah, the 7-year Sabbath of the land, the Yovel, the 50 years of resting and release and return and reset that takes place every 50th year in the land. If you try to take this outside the stage, the platform, the grand beachhead of the kingdom, and it will eventually, when the Messianic kingdom comes, but in this hour, in this day, it will not be successful. It will not have the intended effect. This is designed for the Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. And in this Parsha, we will have 57 verses total. 57 verses that will introduce the grand plan of the Holy One for restoring, first of all, Eretz Yisrael, and eventually the world and all the nations. They're restoring it to what? To the state of beauty, fruitfulness, and shalom for which he created it in the first place. And we start where? We start on Mount Sinai. And the first words and the meaning of the name Bhar is at Sinai or on Sinai. Everything that we're going to hear about happens before we ever get to the land. We're setting plans. We're making plans for when we get to the land. And the Holy One wants us to have a vision for his plan. So we start from Sinai, looking east. Lift up your eyes and see. The focus of this briefing, this Bhar briefing, is what we are supposed to do once we establish a presence in the land of the patriarchs, which is still, at the time of giving this discussion of this beachhead discourse, still several hundred miles to our east. The Holy One wants us to know that we're supposed to build something on that land he's going to take us to. We're supposed to build what he started in Egypt by entrusting into our stewardship his presence and his words. And now he's going to entrust us also one more thing, the land bridge that links Europe, Asia, and Africa, and the greatest percentages of the population of the world in this age and the age to come. The Creator wants us front and center, open center stage. He wants us to use the strategic parcel of real estate known as Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, as a beachhead. A beachhead for launching into the world. A beachhead from which he can launch a campaign of Kedusha energy, a campaign of heavenly download on earth as is in heaven, and a campaign of goodwill toward mankind that will offer healing and offer restoration to every person and every family and every hill and valley and desert and river and island and timber ridge of the earth in generation after generation. Are you in? Are you ready for this plan? Let's sing our call to worship and get our hearts aligned with the Holy One. This is the Baruch Hu, and it is the blessing that we speak before reading from the Torah. And it's sung in a Hebrew sing-song. I'll sing it, and you can sing with me if you know it. Otherwise, you can listen and see what the Hebrew says to your spirit. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch Ata Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. And now may you open our eyes, O Holy One, and we may see wondrous things in your Torah, for we are just strangers in this earth. So please do not hide your commandments from us. I called the 32nd Parsha lifting our eyes and fixing our focus on home. The great Kedusha discourse has just concluded. It was the Holy One's plan for empowering us because by sharing his holiness, his Kedusha energy that he exudes with us. That has just panned out, just concluded. And we passed our first unit test. We just dealt with the corruptive influence of Tuma in the form of argumentative attitudes and negative speech. That's the whole look-in story I told you about the son of the Mitzri, the son of the Egyptian, and the son of Shlomo. We've passed that test. We've maintained our Kedusha through it. And now it's time for us to get the Holy One's vision for how a heavenly scented society deals with the land of earth. The concluding words of Parsha Emor were, V'yotziu et ha-mekalel el mekutz lemachana. And they took, this is the son of the Mitzri, outside the camp, the one who had cursed, V'yiger mi'amu otu aven. And they piled up stones against him. Uvnei Israel asu ka'ashar ziva Adonai et Moshe. And Bnei Israel, the sons of the children of Israel, did according to all that the Holy One had instructed Moshe. So we have this pattern of how you overcome this deep infusion of hate and anger and blasphemy and tumah into your camp. You follow the instructions of the Holy One. Now the opening lines of this week's Parsha, this 32nd Parsha, Bhar. Here it goes. Vayadaber Adonai el Moshe. And the Holy One spoke to Moshe. Bhar Sinai Lemor. On the mountain, or at the mountain of Sinai, saying, Dabar el Bnei Israel ve'amarta aleihim. Speak to Bnei Israel, the children, sons of Israel, and say to them, Ki tavu u el haaretz ani noten lachem. When you come into the land that I will assign to them. Leviticus 25, 1 through 2a. Bhar Sinai, that's the first phrase that we read. And on the mountain, at the mountain of Sinai. And this idea of we're on a mountain, but we're not on in the land yet. We're on a place where we can see. What happened here at this mountain? Well, something has changed in us. And by virtue of what has happened on Har Sinai, we're able to see our reason for going to the land. We're able to see our purpose in using the land as as a stage, as the platform, as the beachhead for the grand plan to be introduced. All right. So imagine, if you would, standing on top of Mount Sinai, you looking out to the east. You're on the summit. You're looking eastward, across the valleys, across the desert, across a few hundred miles. And imagine supernatural vision. You begin to see the land of Israel unfold, the land of the patriarchs, the land where Abraham walked, the land where Yitzhak planted and harvested, the land where Yaakov and Yosef lived and showed us the ways. And after you climb up on this mountain and you look out, you see that your focus begins to shift. That's the home. That's where you want to be. That's where you belong. That's what you were born to live. We weren't born to live in exile. We weren't born to live in captivity. We weren't born to live in the wilderness. We weren't born to live anywhere besides that land. That land is the fullness of our purpose and the fullness of our potential. And outside that land, we can do many wonderful things. We can experience many good things, but we cannot receive and achieve the fullness of what the Holy One has planned for us. So now, as we stand and we gaze across the time and the seasons and the distances and the hills and the valleys, and we see, envision the land, the Holy Land, the land of Israel, home. What will we do with it? Our focus begins to shift away from what we've been, from where we've been, what we've been, slaves, where we've been, Egypt, and along the ways to Mount Sinai, away from the things we know so far, and the things that we think we know so far by virtue of our life experience and what other people have tried to teach us or say to us. Our focus shifts away from those things to a new paradigm. Where is the Holy One taking us, and why? What will he show us along the way and when we get there? What do we need to learn now to survive then and thrive then and represent our King effectively and fulfill his will in the new deployment, the ultimate deployment of our going to the land? And what we realize suddenly is that the land has always been at the heart of our covenant with the Creator of the universe. The land. This is a covenant that runs with the land, and the land is the land of Israel. He started with Abraham. Go out for yourself. Go out unto yourself. Go out to find who you really are, and go. I will take you to a land. I will show you this land. The first mention of the connection between the covenant people and the land is found in Genesis 12, verses 6 through 7. Here's how it reads. Avram, talking about our ancestor, whose DNA we carry. Avram passed through the land to the place of Shechem, as far as the terebinth tree of Moreh. And the Canaanites, as your King James versions may call it, were then in the land. And the Holy One appeared to Avram and said, to your seed I will entrust, I will natan this land. And so Abraham built an altar there. He built something there to commemorate it. He built an altar to the Holy One who had appeared to him. So he said, I will natan to Abraham. I will natan this land to your seed. And we come forth as the seed. Natan, what does that mean? To give. And we read in English, it just says give. And we don't really get a picture of what that means. This is to entrust as a sharecropper. This is to co-labor, to partner with someone. But there's a sovereign and there's a vassal. There's one who is in full authority, and there's one who has limited, receives authority from the greater one. So the greater covenant partner, the lesser covenant partner, the sovereign and the vassal. We are the vassal. He is the sovereign. And here's the first thing we learn about the Natan sharecropping plan of giving, as it reads in English. Title remains in the sovereign, the greater covenant partner, in the Holy One. It is his land. It is always going to be his land. It will never be our land other than the fact of what he gives us rights in it. And those rights are the vassal rights. And the second thing about the sharecropping plan, the Natan plan of the Holy One about the land, is that we are given the right to physically possess and occupy the property, but that right is always subject to the superior right of the sovereign and the will of the sovereign. And that right on the sovereign's part, on the Holy One's part, includes the right to evict us, evict the vassal, in case the vassal defaults on his covenant obligations. He doesn't do what he was put on the land and given the land, so to speak, to take care of, to do. The third aspect of the sharecropping plan, the Natan plan, is that the vassal, us in this situation, is going to be given the right and responsibility to admit and exclude outsiders from the land. The right and responsibility, with accountability, to admit or exclude outsiders from the land. We decide who can be there. Well, this is to prevent trespassing, to prohibit trespassing and squatting. And there's only one exception to trespassing, according to the master's rules, to the sovereign's rules, and that is to leave the corners of the field and the gleanings of the harvest for the poor and the foreigner to come, and the widow to come and enjoy. Now that's the right and responsibility to admit and exclude outsiders. That's part of the vassal's rights. The next vassal right is the right to use and enjoy the property for purposes of living there, habitation, and cultivation, making it fruitful, and resource extraction and harvesting. This is parnasah, to use this as the base of operations of our parnasah, our part in the production, our co-laboring with the Holy One. We are not his dependents. We are his co-laborers, his servants in the land. The final section we'll talk about as far as the sharecropping plan of Natan, what the Holy One's giving us the land to do, is that we are to have very limited rights of disposition. We will never be able to transfer and assign all the rights the Holy One has given to us. We can't cede it to a nation. We can't put it in part of a treaty. We can't give away that which is his. And so though we may try, and though our rulers of the people may have tried to do that or done that in the past, those pieces of paper, those documents they signed aren't worth the paper they're written on. They aren't worth the ink that makes them up. The Holy One retains all the rights of disposition. And so we can say what we want to say, we can try to do what we want to do, but when it comes right down to it, he's going to take it back. He will not allow us to even deed it, much less will it or convey it to anyone else. It's his land, and it's for his purposes. It is for the purpose of the grand redemptive restorative plan. It doesn't go by virtue of somebody else just wants it or can pay a price for it. Well, let's talk about what our responsibilities are in general with regard to the physical earth that we live in. We have responsibilities to the land. I want to refer you back to Genesis 3:23. When it says, therefore, this is after the garden incident and the expulsion. This is in connection with the expulsion of man from the Garden of Eden. He didn't just punish man, he gave man an assignment. And so it says, therefore, the Holy One God sent man out of the Garden of Eden for a purpose, to abad it. English, I think it says, till. The word abad means to serve, to be a servant of. He sent man out of the Garden of Eden to serve, be a servant to the ground from which he was taken. So all the earth, man was taken from the earth. It was formed in Genesis 2 out of the eretz, out of the ground. And so now we're to serve the ground from which we were taken. We are servants of the ground, wherever we go. We are servants of the land. We owe obligations of avodah to every square centimeter of land that our feet touch, ever, wherever we go. That starts when we're in captivity in Shavuot. It goes also just every area, even when we're captives. It's like when Jeremiah said, "Pray for the peace of the cities in which you dwell," when they were in captivity in Babylon. Shavuot, even in Shavuot, we are to be stewards and servants of the land there. That is our responsibility beyond anything else. And the second thing is galut. As servants of the Holy One, when we're in exile, even though we can't really go home to our platform, to our stage, to our beachhead, when we are been prevented for some reason by that, we have a purpose, and one of those purposes is to bring blessing and healing to the physical land, and for productivity and fruitfulness to the land. Be an example of good stewardship of the land, even in our galut that we don't even own the land. So the third section, after Shavuot, or captivity, after exile, galut, we're supposed to be responsible for the land everywhere we travel. In the wilderness, in the wilderness areas of life, in the places we just pass through, we're supposed to be a blessing to the land. We're supposed to be servants of the land there. We're not supposed to trash it. We're supposed to make it better for our being there than it was when we got there. And then, of course, there's the land of Israel, the Eretz Yisrael, our highest level of responsibility of bringing Kedusha and serving the land is in the land of Israel, and it has high levels of protocols of how to serve the land of Israel and use it for the kingdom purposes. And ultimately, we will have Eden, the fifth level of Eretz realm, Kedusha, infusion, is it what we'll have when the world is returned to Edenic state. So let's talk for a few minutes, since we have now this one special land where our eyes are fixed to the east from Mount Sinai, and we're seeing this land begin to take shape. The people who received this message from the Holy One had never seen that land in the physical with their physical eyes. But suddenly, through the words of the Holy One, they're envisioning it in their spirits, in their neshamas. And I hope it's the same for us. We're supposed to envision those beautiful hills, those beautiful mountains, those beautiful valleys, the beautiful springs of water in Gedi, the beautiful river of the Jordan, the beautiful beach along by Tel Aviv or Netanya and Jaffa. And Carmel, these mountains of Hermon and down to Carmel and Tabor and Zion and Moriah, all these beautiful places we read about. We're supposed to begin to envision them and feel this connection to them. See, the land that we're called to use as our platform, as our stage, is a land like no other land on earth. It's just not like America or Africa or Asia or Europe or Saudi Arabia. It's not like that. This land is holy. It's been touched by the Creator of the universe in ways that release the beauty and the fruitfulness of heaven into it. And so it's a special land. And that's why we're connected to it. As we're called to be special people, the same specialness is present in this land. So even as the Sabbath, the seventh day, is blessed and holy, so it is the land of Israel is blessed and holy. And it requires us to implement appropriate Kedusha and Barakah, holiness, maintaining, and blessing, receiving, and releasing protocols. A covenant that runs with the land. The Abrahamic covenant cannot be spoken of without talking about the land of Israel. You can't, and if there's no connection with the land of Israel, the covenant is faulty. The covenant is failing. So we now have, since 1948 in our time frame, we have a reconnection between the covenant and the land. And oh, what a glorious thing it is. It's not a political movement. It's not an ideological movement. It's not a racial or ethnic movement. It is a covenant that runs with the land, the people of the covenant in the land of the covenant, doing the things of the covenant for the sake of the world. The covenants could be a mere personal commitment, but not a covenant that runs the land. A covenant that runs the land has seed in it. It goes generation after generation after generation, and it goes with the land and does not ever separate from the land. Even if you're not in the land, you're doing what's necessary to get back to the land. The Abrahamic covenant is a covenant that runs with the land. The Sinaitic codicil to that covenant is a covenant that runs with the land. This land bridge between the great river and the Nile, between the great sea and the Jordan, is an essential element of our covenant and our purpose on earth. Now, I want to remind you of something that the Holy One said to Abraham. Since we're talking about this covenant connection between the covenant people and the land, Genesis 13:14-17 says, "And the Holy One said to Abraham, after Lot had separated from him," these are the words, "Lift up your eyes now." And I hope you're hearing the same message, to lift up your eyes. "Lift up your eyes now and look from the place where you are, northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land which you see, I will natan to you." I will give as a sovereign gives to a vassal, to you and to your seed forever. "And I will make your seed as the dust of the earth," so that if a man could number the dust of the earth, then your seed could also be numbered. Wow, this is connection time. Now I hope you're getting the vision. Lift up your eyes. Now let's talk about Genesis 15:16. In the fourth generation, the Holy One prophesied, and when he put Abraham into a deep sleep and prophesied to him about the future. In the fourth generation, they, being your seed, the seed we just talked about, this seed will return here. Yes, that's us. That's our calling. This seed will return here, for the iniquity of the Amorites, the Canaanites, is not yet full, is not yet complete. Now we're realizing that the land is not some utopia we're going to. It is going to be a catastrophe whenever we get there. We're going to not be just thrilled by the land. We're going to have to restore and redeem the land. We have a purpose in the land that's tied to the iniquity of the Amorite. The peoples there have destroyed it virtually, have made it into a mess, into a den of iniquity. And we are to bring healing and restoration to it. Leviticus 18:25. Last week we read, 2 weeks ago we read, the land is defiled. Why? Because of the Canaanite, because of the perversions and the abominations they have performed there. He said, the land is defiled, therefore I, the Holy One says, will visit the punishment of its iniquity upon it, and the land will vomit out its inhabitants. It will spit them out like someone who's sick at their stomach. The land will be so sick that it will throw out its inhabitants, these Canaani and these Amorites. The men who were in the land before you have built and done abominations, and because of them, the land is defiled. So here we are. We were thinking how wonderful this land is going to be, and now he's telling us, for no uncertain term, but right now, and when you go in, when you see it, it will not be as you want it to be, as I want it to be. It will be defiled, and that's why I'm sending you now. But the question is this: can this land, now that it's been defiled by every abomination and perversion known to man, by the hands of the Canaani and the Amorites and the other ites and the other peoples of the world, can this land be healed? It's like a valley of dry bones question. The valley of dry bones in Ezekiel 37. Can these bones live? Can this valley of dry bones that is Eretz Israel waiting to be and waiting, can this valley of dry bones teem with life and thrive again the way it did under the caring stewardship of Abraham, of Yitzhak, and of Yaakov? Can this land thrive? Can these valley of dry bones be teeming with life again? Well, yes, 1,000 times yes. That's the covenant, and that's the plan. That's the purpose. This is a key feature, a key factor in the Creator's grand plan to restore the earth to its original Edenic beauty and fruitfulness. One piece and parcel of land at a time, beginning with Eretz Yisrael. And there's more to it than that. It's personal to us because every kingdom must have a homeland. Ours is Eretz Yisrael. It's not Texas, although I live here. It's not wherever you are, North Carolina or South Africa or Europe or Asia or Great Britain. It's none of those places. It's not California. It's not the Philippines. It's not Malaysia. It's not India. It's not Japan. It's not Russia. It's not any of those places. The kingdom of the heaven on earth has a homeland, and that is Eretz Yisrael. You see, our identities, our mission, our destinies, our purpose in life is inextricably tied to that land. Oh, it's connected to us in the spirit level. And when the Holy One touched Moshe at the burning bush, and he commissioned him to lead Abraham's seed out of bondage in Egypt, his promise was that he would bring us, to a good and large land, a land flowing with, you know what he said, a land flowing with milk and honey. These are the words that should roll off your tongue. This is the words that should stir your spirits. A good and a large land, a land flowing with milk and honey. The national anthem of the present Jewish state or Hebrew state that exists on the land. And you can feel whatever you want to feel about that. Quite frankly, this is not the point. But the national anthem says much more than just about that government. As a matter of fact, what the national anthem is Hatikva, the hope. And it goes like this. In English translation would be like this. As long as within our hearts, the Hebrew soul sings. As long as forward to the east, to Zion looks the eye, our hope is not yet lost. The hope, thousands of years old, to be a free people in our land, the land of Zion and Jerusalem. Ah, beloved, as goes this hope, the hope of being a free people in our land, the land of Zion, the land of Jerusalem. As goes this hope in the hearts of Bnei Israel, so goes the welfare of the species of mankind. This is tied not just to our benefit, but to the benefit of the world. Remember Leviticus 23:22 from Parsha Emor. It says, the Holy One spoke, and he said, when you reap the harvest of your land, this is that land. When you reap the harvest of your land, you are not to wholly reap the corners of your field when you reap, nor are you to gather any gleaning from your harvest. You are to leave them for the poor, and for the stranger, for the alien, for the ones of the nations. I am the Holy One, your God. And then toward the end of last week's Parsha, we received this, or toward the end of this week's Parsha, actually from Bhar, we're going to receive this mission statement. He's going to say, the Holy One's going to say, build asa, make them happen, my statutes. And shamar and asa, guard, treasure, cherish, and watch over and build my mishpatim, my paradigms of forward-looking, solution-minded counsel. And as you do so, you will dwell in the land lebetok, through radical trust in my name. And then the land will yield its fruit, and you will eat your fill, and you will dwell there lebetok, by and through radical trust. This will be my witness, my story, his story. This will be the testimony to the nations. Land entrustment is an essential element of the covenant. And it's time for us to get over the infatuation of this redeemed soul. The wounds and the scars of our slavery being forgotten. We need to self-deny, like the commitment of Ruth, and see ourselves as not just objects of redemption, but full partners now in the Holy One's plan for creation, renewal, and restoration. So we'll have three basic aspects of Kedusha stewardship protocols that we are supposed to implement when we get to the land. And why do we talk about this if we're not, some of you are, but some of you are not in the land. And if you're not in the land, why do we even talk about this? Because you see, we have to know where we're going and what our purpose is and what we're connecting to and how to do a little bit of what we're called to do in our land where we live now, and also to prepare and train ourselves for what we're going to do when we get to the land. The first of the stewardship protocols of Eretz Yisrael is called Hashimata, the seventh year protocol. On the seventh year, that we won't till the land, we won't sow seed, we won't do. It's the comparison to the seventh day of the week when we rest and we bless the Holy One and we receive and embrace the holiness and the blessing that's in the seventh day. We delight in what the Holy One has done. So it will be in the seventh year. What a testimony to the world that we trust the Holy One, not our own parnasah, not our own work. The second is the 50th year protocol, the Hayovel. In English, they call it the Jubilee, but Jubilee misses the whole point. Jubilee makes it sound like some big celebration. What Yovel is a reset. We return. This is not you're not free to do it where you want to go. You go home. You go back to your scribe. You reset the whole protocol to make it work and make it new again. Everyone goes back to their own familial clan and tribe land and makes it fruitful again. And then the third protocol after Hashimata and Hayovel is Ga'al, the redemption modeling. We are to always think in terms of anything that needs to redemption, not judgment, not condemnation. What could be done to redeem? So we're going to talk about redemption of land, redemption of inheritance, redemption of awards, redemption of people, redemption of things will be the next focus. We're supposed to be masters of redemption, masters of Ge'ulah. Well, these are the key elements of our testimony to the nations from the land of the goodness and the worthiness of the Creator of the universe. So let's read a little bit more, and there'll be time for me to leave you and let you spend your time studying by yourselves or with your own little group of people. The next words after what the Holy One said before is V'shavta ha'aretz Shabbat la'Adonai, and then the land will Sabbath a Sabbath unto the Holy One. When we come into the land will enjoy a Sabbath. It will be like they've been waiting. The land has been waiting under the defilement, under the perversions, under the corruption, under the abominations of the Canaani, of the Amori, all these other peoples of the world. They've been subjecting it to such frustration. When we enter the land, they'll say, "Oh, they're finally here," and it will be like Sabbath. It will be so sweet. And so the saying land will enjoy a Sabbath when we come in, and that will reset everything on a 7 and a 50-year plan. Then he says, Shesh shanim tizra zadeka. For 6 years you will sow your assigned field. This is you will make your parnasa for 6 years. V'shesh shanim tizmor karmeka. And 6 years you will prune your assigned vineyard. Ve'asafta et tuavata. And you will gather and harvest in the produce thereof these 6 years. Uv shana ha-shaviat Shabbat Shabbaton la'aretz. But the 7th year is to be a Sabbath of Sabbaths for the land. Shabbat la'Adonai sadeh lo tisra. A Sabbath unto the Holy One. A Sabbath of not sowing, working your assigned field. Well, this is how we're going to reconnect. This is how we're going to sanctify. This is how we're going to set apart this land as unlike any other land. And even now, how can we begin to get into a 7-year rhythm, 7-year patterns? There is so much to this. We don't have time to talk about it in great detail. But I want to talk about just basically inaugurating the 6+1 distinctions, the realm of sevens, the 6+1 distinctions in our time-space continuum. Just as every 7th day is for us a Sabbath day. So when we are in the land of Israel, every 7th year is going to be for us a Sabbath year. Shemitah. Shemitah means release. And at the end of the 7th Shemitah, after 7 of these 7 years, periods, we're going to mark the beginning of a new epochs, with a special sabbatical year called the Yovel. During each Shemitah and Yovel, we are neither to till the soil, nor sow the seed, nor prune the vines, nor harvest what grows on its own throughout the land of promise. This 7-year cycle. You should hear hints of it from the whole story of the Yosef area. Remember the dream that Pharaoh had, the cows, and then the heads of grain, and Yosef said 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine. Now, You understand the seven idea of the 7 years. In the world, there was no seventh. In Egypt, there was no seventh rest in either of those sessions. But in our world, we're supposed to override the Joseph picture that he drew for him. 7 years, but at the seventh, we rest. And we let the land produce for itself and for the world. Now, in the Mishpatim discourse, the Holy One introduced this whole idea of the sevens with a couple of other instructions that aren't so much agricultural. In Exodus 21:2, the Holy One told us, if you acquire a Hebrew servant, you remember this now, if you acquire a Hebrew servant, he is to serve you for Sheshamim, for 6 years, but in the seventh year, he is to be set out free, owing you nothing. There's a release of debts and obligations in the seventh year. So it goes along with the rest and no work and no tilling the soil. The Shabbat of the year, now there's a seventh year of freedom and release. Where's he to go? He's supposed to go back to his land, back home. In Exodus 23:10, the Holy One told us that in the seventh year we are to refrain from working the land, and that the natural fruits of the land that grow of themselves, volunteers, are to be for your people, he said, and for the wild beasts of the field. Beloved, we know that the Holy One has had this in mind all along the way. But the secret to having this work is something that we'll learn about called bitachon, an abiding, joyful, patient confidence that the Creator of the universe is good, and that everything that he does is good, everything he says is good, and everything he says for us to do is good. Everything he says for us to refrain from is important that we do so for good. Everything he allows or disallows for us is good. These are the secrets of bitachon, and if we do what he says, we just trust him to say he's right, he's always good, then we will not be so tempted to be caught up in fear and worry. Bitachon is an overriding sense of optimism and confidence and trust, based upon years, at least some season of time of walking in emunah, or trust or faith with the Holy One. See, if you know from the Spirit's witness, and you know from the testimony of your experience that God is real, and that he is good, and that he is always faithful to his creation and to his covenant, and that he is always ultimately in charge of bringing good out of all situations. If you know that, then indulging fears about the future, or worrying, or feeling personally you have to make something happen, or fretting over evildoers and what they're doing, all those things make no sense. What makes sense is seeking and doing the Creator's will and following his instructions. That makes all the sense in the world. Well, I hope you have a good discussion around your tables, or a good meditation in your own private times on the Shabbat about Parnassah, the outworking of bitachon, of trust. We're in partnership with the Holy One. And this idea of livelihood and vocation, and earning income, of making a living, of being self-sustaining in monetary ways, managing your personal household expenses, this is important. Because if we do not get this right, if we do not trust in bitachon, if we do not follow his protocols and trust his protocols and his ways, then we will get into envy and jealousy and worship of mammon and materialness, and competition with others, and greed and closed-handedness. We will get into all sorts of perversions that will make sure that the witness that comes out of the land, or our land, or wherever we may be, is not a pure witness. So some of the important life skills we should be learning from our Parnassah, our earning a living: short and long-term planning, strategy, vision, and being willing to delay gratification. That is what Parnassah teaches us, as well as management of time and energy and passion and favor that we receive from other people. We have to manage those appropriately to do our Parnassah. And budgeting of resources, learning not to spend just because we have something, learning to save, learning to prioritize and strategize the finances. Prioritizing and sequencing tasks, becoming a multitasker when necessary, but also learning which tasks are most important. Accountability is a factor we learn from Parnassah. We see that what we reap, we will sow. Problem solving, troubleshooting are things that we learn from Parnassah, from this making a living responsibility, livelihood, vocation. Goal focus and distraction resistance, productivity, fruitfulness, value adding, and learning how to socialize effectively, productively, without getting all offended and angry, and therefore cutting off communication of those that we're interconnected with, though we might like to in our personal offense areas. Well, I hope that's a good start for you to talk about Parsha Bhar, or think about it, or meditate on it. Beloved, remember the land. Remember you're called to be on a stage. You're called to tell a story, to sing a song of redemption and restoration that the world will marvel at and come to the stage. Blessings, blessings, blessings. Shabbat Shalom. See you next week.